Alright you guys, so in today's video I just wanted to do a quick little side-by-side comparison between the 35 1.4 L2 from Canon and the new Tamron 35 1.4. It's actually a really great lens, so stick around. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Please go to ProPhotoEdits.com where you can download my Lightroom presets and Photoshop action sets, and they'll help you out editing. Alright you guys, so let's get into this. This is going to be a quick comparison between the Canon 1.4 35 L2 and the new Tamron 35 1.4, their top of the line 35. And I'm going to show you guys, you might be able to save some money and get a really nice lens out of the Tamron. I was quite surprised. But 1 star is going to be the Tamron, 2 stars is going to be the Canon. Alright, so check this out. I just want to show you in this example, we were out snapping some senior portraits waiting for the light to get right, and as you see, we're just using the reflector here, and I'll zoom in and show you, but I wanted to show you the characteristics that I've always not liked. One thing about the L2 Canon 35 1.4 is this right here. You see this crazy sun star flare. The flare is much more natural on the Tamron, and I just borrowed the Tamron. I don't actually own it, although I think I may actually rent it long term and see if I can replace the 35 with it. I'm not sure that it's a better lens all around, but I think it may be a little bit more organic. We'll have to look at these and see. But check this out. You see the flare on this one is nice and circular and round. You're not getting any harsh spots. And see down here at the bottom, it's really nice and round and circular, and it's not abrasive. Over here on the right, you have the really harsh round, sunstar balls, and there's no filters on here, no UV filters, anything like that. So this is actually the way the lens looks. And on this side on the right, you're really getting a lot of these harsh balls that, this right here makes this shot kind of unusable. And that stinks when you get home and you have to say, my goodness, that this is going to be one heck of a Photoshop endeavor, just because of how much of this sunspot is all over the eye and different shades of the skin, and it's just gonna take too long to save a shot like that. And then you always have these harsh ones pretty much most of the time. The Canon is sharper, not by a ton, but it is sharper, and you can see as we zoom in here, this is not quite as sharp. The color rendition is fine. I just put one of my presets on both of these, and just so they'll be equal. It's not quite as sharp at every shot, although it is pretty accurate. It's just not always as sharp. But if you look at the bokeh is a little bit softer, a little bit more round on the Tamron. The colors are nice and pleasing, I would say. Yeah, the bokeh is a little bit softer because it's a little bit of a softer lens, not in a bad way. It's actually a really nice lens. I'm not here to dog it at all. So this time we're going to have the Tamron on the right and the Canon on the left. So you can see I tried to get a shot with less flare on the Canon here, so we didn't have as many sun stars and just sunspots on the lens. But you can see there's a little bit of flare down here on the Canon. The Tamron flares out a lot. Pretty much all angles you get flare, and it's not bad. Like I said, it's really circular flare, but you can see that the images, it washes it out just a little bit, which I kind of like. I kind of like for some reason, because over here on the left with the Canon, you can see that it's not quite as dreamy looking, and it's a sharper image because the flare isn't affecting it as much. You see the Tamron's not quite as sharp. A little bit softer, more organic. The Canon is one heck of a sharp lens. That refractive element in there just really makes this lens sharp. Handles chromatic aberration really well on the Canon. I don't see much on the Tamron. It did a really great job of it, and actually like the hair better on the Tamron because it's softer and not as jagged. And I could try to get the same flare over here on the Canon, but you'll see it won't be as natural. It won't be as natural as in the photo I just showed you before. You have huge, big, round spots down here, a couple on her chest, just like this right here that we're seeing. And that's obnoxious. That's not really cool. Now the Canon is one of my favorite lenses. It does a great job, but when you're shooting in backlit scenarios, it doesn't in pretty much every scenario I've shot with it, it doesn't have an organic flare. It has really harsh round spots, which isn't really cool. The Tamron, on the other hand, has really organic flare. It washes the image out a bit, but I think it's a little bit more of a pleasing image. All right, let's do a test here for bokeh, and which one has the better bokeh, the softer bokeh and 3D pop. It's going to be 2 different lenses for each one. Here on the right, we have the new Tamron 1.4 35, and this is the 35L2 from Canon. Let's zoom in here and look at this bokeh. So the bokeh is softer here on the right on the Tamron, I think for sure. And you go down here into the foliage, and you can see that it's a little bit more organic, a little bit more painterly. And I think that's kind of the trade-off of it just not being quite as sharp as a lens. I know that it broke all the tests for being sharper, but I mean, just seeing what I'm seeing right here, I'm not sure that that's 100% accurate. It's an accurate lens as far as hitting the eye and everything on the EOS R, but I can see right here that the 35L2 is incredibly sharp. It's one of the sharpest lenses I've ever shot for a 35 with autofocus. So you can see that the Canon on the left has definitely more of a 3D pop. It has its own look. It looks like she's just a little bit imposed on there. Sometimes I like that, sometimes I don't. Over here on the right, it's more of a flat image, which isn't bad. I mean, it's nice and pleasing to look at. It's a little bit softer, a little bit more painterly. 2 totally different looks. But I think for the price, the Tamron is really doing a great job. I've never had great success like even wanted to pick up a Tamron after I've shot with a few of them. They've been very average and decent, you know, budget lenses, but the price on this isn't really budget anymore, but I think it's holding its own. So I would never really shoot a shot this close with a 35. I would shoot it in portrait, but I just want to show you guys the difference here, just to really drive the point home and see which ones you guys like better. This is going to be the Tamron on the left, 1 star, and the 2 star is going to be the Canon. And once again, Canon is sharper. The fall off it's okay. I mean, really fine for me. The fall off over here is a little bit more painterly, a little bit more organic. I took a shot without getting any flare in it just to show you what it looked like if you didn't have a bunch of flare coming in. Now you can see it's not quite as sharp. I don't care what the records say online with all the sharpness tests. It's a great lens, don't get me wrong. It's not as sharp as the 35L2, but the Tamron is sharp enough, that's for sure. I would say I would trade a little bit of sharpness for a nice soft fall off there. So the Canon to me is definitely the sharper lens by every test that I've done. Over here on the left, I would say that this Tamron isn't a slouch. I mean, it's really sharp. I've shot it against my Sigma Art before I sold the Sigma, and it did a really good job. I thought it was a little bit more organic. I didn't think it was as good a lens as the 35L2 until I got it out and tested it against the flare, and it kind of solved the one problem that I have with the 35L2, which is the flare, just the harsh, obnoxious flare. As you can see, the bokeh here, I mean, it's almost a wash. And I would just say that the drawing of the bokeh on the Tamron is a little bit better. It's a little bit more pleasing. It's not as sharp throughout the frame, and you can see that that's a little bit more painterly. Like over here, the tree on the 35 is just a little bit more in focus, more abrasive. Nothing crazy, just your typical change from one lens to the other. I think the colors are better on the Canon, and you can definitely see that there's a 3D punch here on the Canon. Do you want that? Some people hate it, some people love it. It's totally up to you. I think this requires a little bit more editing just color wise in post, but it's nothing that you can't fix. So just to wrap this up and show you some untouched images and show you the differences in color that I found. This is a 35L2 on the right, and on the left you have the Tamron in the scenario. And you can see that the Tamron, I think it lets the flare hit here a little bit warmer and nicer and organically, and you can see that the flare is all over her face here, and I'd have to just choose my angles maybe differently than I'd really like to with the 35L2, which sucks. But the color here is definitely more accurate and more pleasing. Flare is just not obnoxious. You can kind of shoot it at a bunch of different angles and get some really pretty flared out looks. But what do you guys think? Leave your comments down below. Would you like to save some money and get the 35 Tamron, which is pretty sharp enough? or spend a little extra money and get the Canon and have to do your shots at certain angles to really get rid of all this craziness to get some type of organic flare, which I have been able to get it positioned the way I want it before. It's never really organic, but I can get it positioned to a place where it makes sense. I don't really have to pick my angles with the Tamron. I just shoot and it always looks pretty good. What do you guys think? Leave your comments down below. Until next time, it's Marcus. Love y'all.